a hidden gateway stands outside of time, challenging the sky and unwise intruders with the peril of a portal into unknown realms. There is chance here. There is a risk of losing myself in this remoteness, in this alien landscape of such incredible beauty. The Temple of the Sun and the Temple of the Moon call me back. I'm a traveler through both space and time. For some 50 years, I've entered into an amazing landscape. A magnificent ocean of stone and high, clear air. A land of standing rocks and deep canyons in the deserts of Utah that form the spiritual heart of North America's Colorado Plateau. I've explored these majestic canyon lands many times, approaching its mysteries in different ways. As a photographer, a poet, and a seeker of adventure, I've pursued meaning and beauty here, and the purpose of my life. Sometimes these journeys lead to dire straits along the way. I've nearly died of thirst and heat stroke. I've been stranded and frozen in this bristling, wonderful country. I've wandered to places where I was the only human being for many lonely miles. Even so, I continue to return here, not only willingly, but with longing in my heart for such an unlikely place. It's an addiction, I suppose, to the surreal, inhuman beauty of this landscape. It compels my return. I've hiked and photographed here for years, but this journey would be different. It would be a purposed quest, a spirit quest, to slow down my body and mind, and to seek a vision from the desert. To find a place to be quiet and still, and just see, just hear, just be. It's an experiment. Do I have the shaman's ability to invoke an inner visionary journey? One so compelling it might be a window into other realms? I don't know. But I'll pursue it within the massive red rocks and mysterious canyons. Once I find a solitary and remote spot that calls to me as the right place, I'll make a circle in the desert. There I shall simply sit for a day or two, quieting my mind. And if I'm very fortunate, I might hear the voice of this amazing land, and of the earth and cosmos in which we are forever suspended. Whatever form that takes, I know that the massive red stones are waiting for me, standing there in their world, and I shall come and go among them as a flicker, scarcely to register on stony eyes. Perhaps I shall not impress them, but I shall be forever changed by coming into their presence once again. My quest takes place in a magical landscape in the American West. The Colorado Plateau is the high desert region that begins in the western edge of Colorado, where the Great River has its origin, and stretches across parts of New Mexico, northern Arizona, and up into Utah, a region known casually as the Four Corners because of the intersections of those states. It's geologically and geographically distinct, and is, without debate, one of the most incredible places on planet Earth. I've made the long drive from my home in Central Texas to the Canyon Country many times, and it always strikes me as a grand crossing, like crossing an ocean to reach an exotic, faraway land. If it were easy or quick to reach these marvelous places, I think they would have a different impact on me. If I lived among the canyons and mesas and stones, they'd have great power in my life, but it would be of a different flavor, a different angle. Leaving home and standing on another shore alters our conceptions of who we are. Perspective changes and twists. The familiar becomes strange. Our bodies are fragile, and so are the forms our culture takes in different surroundings. It empowers the destination when I'm required to extend some real effort and time to come into its presence. So, leaving my green hills, I set out upon that figurative sea of progressively flatter, drier, and more sparse land, following the sun across the endless farm and ranch lands of America's southern Great Plains. The old Spanish explorers referred to these immense flatlands as the fortified plains, the Llano Estacado. For them, this was a great and endless sea of grasses, growing taller than a man, and as deadly for them as any uncharted ocean. Hours along my way, Texas finally recedes, and New Mexico appears. I'm heading westward, and into a dream. With no discernible motivation, the land suddenly breaks and falls away a few hundred feet. The long escarpment called the Caprock marks the western border of the level plains, and the vast and rolling emptiness of eastern New Mexico begins its song. That great dry ocean, so utterly flat before, gives way now to vast contour and wide views of empty distance and serene light. The ranchland of sage and short grasses goes on forever and ever. It can be 100 miles between towns out here, with nothing between but the highway and a boundless blue sky. If this unremitting emptiness doesn't disturb you, it will fill you with peace, a calming that is the beginning of the good medicine of this country. Just north of Encino, there's a rise up onto a higher mesa, a transition point into New Mexico's loftier lands of enchantment. I'm entering the southernmost range of the Colorado Plateau. The rolling sagelands take on a new mantle of juniper, and the land itself becomes more rugged and mountainous. Approaching Santa Fe, a great sense of peace and well-being settles over me. There's something about this high northern New Mexican landscape in the quality of the light. Clear, intense, cool, deep. Up in the mountains, just a canyon over from the place where men design modern atomic weapons at Los Alamos, there lies a much older city. Adolphe Bandelier made this place famous over a century ago, and we still call it by his name. But the old ones, those ancestral Puebloans, had their own names for the homes they made here under the shadow of the cliffs. It was a good life here in the protected canyon, with its stream and cottonwood trees. There was vibrant trade and lovingly tended crops of corn, beans, and squash. They wove the magic into the fabrics of their clothing and kept the farms and hunted on the mesas. Over time, this ceased to be as the people walked away from their elegant labors here, forging new lives in the valleys below. Along my journey to find my special place, I stood again in Navajo lands, in Monument Valley. I've been here before, and again before that, encounters with this famous landscape going back some 4 decades. This night I camped on the valley rim as the iconic Mittens and Red Canyons were illuminated by a chill moonlight. The next morning, the formations loomed in the glow of the pre-dawn. Sitting quietly here on the rim, it strikes me that if these stone towers could speak to me, they who've stood mute through millions of such sunrises, they might say, "Stay still, little one. You were here just a second ago, weren't you? Slow down so that we may appraise your form." Well, if they do speak such things, their voices are too slow and too deep for my small ears. The long road leads north now, into Utah, past the winding San Juan River and its amazing Gooseneck Canyons. Then up the exciting Moki Dugway, for the spectacular view from Muley Point, more than 1,000 feet higher, on the edge of Cedar Mesa. Here, the largest cedar forest on the planet is protected as part of Bears Ears National Monument, and in its hidden canyons are preserved some of the ancestral Puebloans' cliff dwellings and other structures. Passing through a paradise garden of wildflowers, like a living bouquet, I hiked to a cliff dwelling called House on Fire, named for the striations on its sandstone ceiling that look like licking flames. As I paused in this special place, I thought about those builders who last set their stone bricks in place here so many hundreds of years past. I gave them a sign of greetings, and then left the old ruin undisturbed. Deeper into the spirit lands, I camped in Glen Canyon, at the mouth of the Dirty Devil River, where it empties into the Colorado. When famed one-armed explorer John Wesley Powell and his men passed through here in 1869, they came across the mouth of an unexpected and winding river canyon, and he jokingly asked if they had found a trout stream. One of the men looked back at the smelly and convoluted waterway and said, "It's a dirty devil," and Powell confirmed that would be its name from now on. Gazing out at this twisted and textured landscape, I ask myself, why does the desert interest me? Why does it have a different effect than, say, driving across Ohio or Kansas? The desert is harsh in counterpoint with living things that have not adapted to it. It's hot or cold, but then so are other places. Maybe it has something to do with what I expect. Crossing normal places, I'll see fields, farms, trees, grass, towns, and cities, all of which look similar and fit a pattern that man has evoked upon the landscape. In the desert, things are literally different. You never know what may be coming next. I think it's this novelty that makes the desert so attractive. We're curious creatures, and the desert is endlessly fascinating because it's always showing us something surprising, mysterious, dangerous, fantastical, and compelling. In the high, dry lands of southern Utah, near Hanksville, I've reached the heart of the wonderland that I love. Somewhere out here, I'll find my special place. I'm anxious now to begin the work of my vision quest. In this otherworldly landscape, the desert is like a stereotype, or perhaps a parody of itself. It's a cartoon desert with sand and sagebrush for endless miles, and the most unlikely orange and white stone castles and mesas stick up out of nowhere at strange angles. In the Caneville Desert, a grand and iconic shape rises like a mirage. Factory Butte rules the horizon here, and I am compelled to approach and explore its mysteries. This is a landscape that seems lifted whole from some great fantasy. There's a wizard's tower ahead, and I wisely chose to turn around. Out here, the planet's surface is so arid that what life there is lies low, crouching sparsely on the sands. It's an eerie place, a dangerous and lonely place. It sears the eyes and captivates them at the same time. It is truly amazing. The stone and canyon deserts are such a grand and inhuman experience that when we come into it like this, it's easy and natural to find ourselves contemplating the big questions of life. life itself is put into such stark perspective that I question not only the difficulty of it enduring here, but just the very fact of it. I think we just backshelf such questions for lack of answers that make any sense, and so we don't really think deeply about life itself very often. Out here, where the land looks like it could be red Mars, I do think about it. And with Mars in my mind, I wonder, why doesn't all of Earth look like this? Why does this effect occur that we call life? What puts it in motion and keeps it going, rather than having a world of inert rocks, dirt, sand, and barren seas? Aside from religions and pat answers, this is a true, deep, and impenetrable mystery, and I look upon it with awe and some portion of fear. The desert reflects this mood, showing me what the world should look like if life were not what it is. If life were properly some fantasy and not part of the sensible and real minerals and gases, all seething and roiling and weathering under that nuclear furnace that's swinging a few million miles away. That would make sense. That would be natural. But this life, this backwards flowing energy that blankets the planet with an amazingly tenacious grip. What brought this about? I'm sitting still here in Goblin Valley, contemplating time. I placed my hand on a strangely shaped sandstone boulder, perched on an unlikely column of mud and dirt. It had been lifted into this position over millions of years. Dinosaurs once disturbed the dirt from which it was formed. Now it was here on its pedestal, emerged out of its matrix of mud, which is dissolved more away with every infrequent rain and howling wind. Some say you can speak to stones, so I addressed this one directly. I know you are slow of time and I am quick, but can you speak to me and tell me of your story? Time is long for you and quick for me, but time is just an illusion, a quirk of space and gravity. Space and gravity are what made you and brought you to this precarious position. But surely we can set time aside so that we may speak to one another. Time is nothing, really. After a long pause, wherein only my heartbeat could be heard, the stone answered with a distant and soft voice in my mind. Time is everything. Now I have come here again, some 40 years coming to this place. What shall I do? Shall I continue to come until in my old age I just blend into the rocks? Perhaps. What shall I do in the meantime? The real time. The good time. I shall live. It was time to find my chosen place, somewhere in all this wilderness. A special place to mark a circle in the desert and ask the universe for a vision. Doing so, I intended to follow some advice I was given, to expect nothing, but to be ready for anything. Deep within a unique and rather remote area north of Hanksville, I found a perfect site for my circle. This uplift zone, called the San Rafael Swell, runs for over 50 miles, like a great inhuman wall, a breaking tsunami made of stone. Secreted in and behind this rock barrier or reef are many beautiful but treacherous slot canyons, ancient pictographs, stone arches, and miners' old ruins. I chose a place that was isolated, but with a broad overview of the desert and its brown arroyos, leading off toward the Henry Mountains to the south. Exploring it a bit, I was delighted to discover some outcrops of ripple rock. This slate sandstone has embedded in its surface the actual ripple pattern it had when it was at the bottom of a lake or shallow sea. Some sudden geologic event caused it to record that pattern of water waves on that particular day, perhaps 60 to 70 million years ago. Buried for all that time and lifted up from its long-extinct ocean or lake, it's been slowly eroding out here in the parched desert. Each one is an echo, fascinating to me because it represents something relatable to a human timescale, a flash-frozen fossil moment of time that I can run my fingers across. Makes me wonder how many lives, stories, and amazing and unlikely events of nature have happened on this planet over the millions upon millions of years that were not so fortunate to be literally recorded in a stone panel by some freakish chance. Sometimes, as I watch a particularly wonderful sunset, it occurs to me that there must have been billions of such beautiful sunsets right here over Earth's history that went, well, unappreciated. I wonder if a dinosaur ever paused to look up in hazy curiosity at a red-orange sky. Standing here now in my special site, I defined my medicine circle with the cardinal directions and placed myself in the very center. I felt relaxed and alert at the same time, but at once began to feel somewhat distant from my normal self. In the Navajo tradition, I acknowledged the beauty before me, behind me, to each side and above and below me, and I sat in silence for a very long while, my mind still and receptive. I had come to my circle with a desire to receive a vision. It was a vision quest. After quite a long time, I began to think that my self-instruction to expect nothing would gain me only that, and I felt a little wistful. I was being too hasty. I needed to be patient. I needed much more time, or perhaps even a more remote and strenuous circumstance. I had begun at midday, with the desert sun directly above my head. And now, with no anticipation of it, I fell deeply asleep on my little spot. In my mind's eye, and from a high perspective, I saw myself there, far below, a single grain of human sand, a mere speck in this vast desert. Then I felt my toes touching the dirt. I was lying flat now, and when I opened my eyes, I beheld an enlarged scene of tiny shards of slate rock and individual red grains of the sand, the intricate details of the desert floor magnified in a way that was fascinating. A beetle laboriously made his way over this tiny yet challenging landscape. At times during the sun-bright day, I would emerge from some strange dream and again take note of this complex microcosm within my extremely close view, carefully examining every nuance of the smallest pebbles, seeds, ants, and cast-off thorn stems, things I would otherwise press underfoot without a thought. Now they were displayed with enormity and import. Then I raised my eyes to see Mount Ellen, rising over 10,000 feet, lofting in the pale distance many miles away to the south. I wondered, which view is bigger, more real, more important? Then it was evening. And then it was the night. Sleep's dark goddess gently draws a veil, and singing a song of silence to becalm my outer voice, draws forth that other self, who forever speaks in stories and unfettered emotion. And then, in shadows there, 1,000 ancient lights emerge. Upon an instant, and recalling no longer my outer self, I pass through a portal never seen, again and for the first time in that other place, engaging fully in an endless story, emerging from the founts of creation. It may be that the thing we ask for is not what we truly need, but in the process of asking, the universe supplies us with what we do need, and so heals us and makes us whole again. This is good medicine. I didn't anticipate or ask to sleep through much of my time in my circle. I did want to gain some modicum of wisdom, and perhaps to touch the ineffable, or at least see its reflection in the sands or within myself. The universe, it seems, had looked down upon my tiny form, and with nurturing sleep and a significant shift in my perceptions stroked and touched me with the antidote to my harried modern life. It was only after I finished my time in the circle, though, that I understood this healing and its revelation of once subdued emotions and thoughts. This kind of reshaping is a valuable gift, and one not easily achieved by more mundane means. I felt clear and happy here in my mysterial sanctuary. Answers in my search for meaning and understanding would not, it would seem, magically appear for me in my sandy haven. I needed to look deeper, look further in, or perhaps further afield. Though not expecting answers directly, perhaps I could find insights to my quest by again moving through these special landscapes, seeking a message from the old ones. Alert to any sign or revelation buried under the weight and debris of time that has gathered here. Looking for a theory of purpose in the shapes and moods of the desert. The eastern edge of the huge geologic bulge of the San Rafael Swell is broken off like the jagged teeth of some prehistoric beast. Its rough face is cut through here and there by narrow slot canyons that funnel tremendous volumes of water during flash floods. These are deadly places to enter at such times. But when the sky is blue and the weather fine, it's one of the most fascinating and enchanting places to explore. I hiked a loop trail up Little Wild Horse Canyon and then back down Bell Canyon, marveling at their fluted, winding, softly colored passages, so tall and narrow. At times there was no flat place to put a foot, only the V where the sandstone walls merged. The effect is wondrous, and it made me feel like a lost adult in a playland made for the child of a giant. West of the San Rafael Swell, another great stone barrier wall rises up. Capitol Reef National Park encompasses the Water Pocket Fold and seems to own its own proprietary palette of colors. The immense shield of sandstone called Capitol Reef is cut through by the verdant Fremont River. Lined here and there with Mormon fruit orchards, impressive pictographs, and a poignant sense of the past. The Mormon pioneers were only one of the last groups to discover and settle by this life-sustaining stream. The Fremont Indians held this as home many hundreds of years before our times. And long before them, the desert archaic people marked this as their spirit land. With my eyes fresh from sleep, like the naive gaze of a child, I look out at the world beyond my simple bed. The dry air is delicious. The moonlight is delicious. The sigh of the soft night breeze is delicious. The stars are delicious. The backlit clouds are delicious. One thin veil of cloud has a fish's shape, and a star shining through it, just so placed to be its bright eye. The spirits of the night sky are watching me sleep. The Fremont Indians would have understood. The remote northern reach of Capitol Reef National Park is a landscape mostly devoid of people, but full of cathedrals. Not constructed by men's hands, but massive, fluted, and strangely eroded towers and walls sculpted by the natural forces of the desert, in such numbers and grandeur that it's called Cathedral Valley. You need a sturdy vehicle to access this land on a sometimes challenging dirt road that stretches and loops for 65 miles through outlandish and curious places like the Bentonite Hills, a fantasy vision of pastel clays weathered into a Seussian world. Portents of earlier adventurers appear like warning signs posted along the way by the capricious desert gens. Water was essential to past human endeavors here. An old abandoned water well truck sinks slowly into the sand, beaten down by the hard sun and the salt winds. Laboring over rocky passes and struggling through deep sandbogs, I finally came to the place to which I had been drawn, as if by some gigantic, magnificent magnet. In a scenic basin enclosed by sandy cathedral walls, and in a natural and perfect setting, two majestic and acclaimed actors prepared to take the stage. I camped outside the stage door so I could be there when the show began at dawn. The Temple of the Sun sees golden light and passes it down to the Temple of the Moon. I stand still, not daring to move at all. It is required. Here before the temples, the silence and simple glory of this place began to unwind me bit by bit. A breeze began to stir, and my thoughts unraveled into whispers behind me. As the temples basked in their arid theater, I traveled north and east into Arches National Park. And once again, I paused to wonder at profoundly beautiful, delicate arch. A very symbol of the state of Utah, it's often attended by many admirers. If you wait there until nearly dark when others have hiked back down the trail, it's sometimes possible to have the sublime arch to oneself and watch as evening's magic light turns it into something more than stone. I recalled something I wrote here many years ago. Delicate arch is waiting, standing on the edge. More than the effort of crumbled and wind-blown stone, it is like a letter in some unknown alphabet, set glowing and hard on the desert wall. Quietly hidden until it is sought. Or, more likely still, an entire word, a statement waiting for some reader. Is it then a symbol, spoken in a language not of words? Is the speaker also the audience? Or does he speak to men? Does he utter such a thing that shapes the land in reddened art? Or say some other thing that lies beyond the sand and sky? Delicate arch remains, silently ringing. There's another place where symbols are written on stone, but in a more directly human manner. And to see them, I drove almost 40 miles of sandy washboard dirt road to the remote western side of Canyonlands National Park. With that great rocky swell hiding my circle receding behind me, I crossed the San Rafael Desert, prizing its wide-open vistas of green and dark gray sage. The rough road briefly rose through the flat-top mesas, then, still bearing east, fell again toward an impressive plain of pristine sand dunes, all aglow under the hot sun. Off in the southern distance, the remote Henry Mountains brushed against the blue sky. The red wind whispers, calling me out to the sharp world, the cold land, the place of polished stone, the land of keen breath, the clean and parched country. Where the river of moments slows its crawl, and the world runs far, far away to the uttermost limb of blue and brown. The blank places beckon and chide, reaching long and deep to find my invented corner, to lift me up from my comfortable blindness, to bring me out to my real house. The hollow lands fill up my eyes, and the empty flank of the world supports my soul. I had come out this way once before, decades ago, searching for the ghostly spirits of the canyons, and I ventured too far into these sandstone mazes ahead, stranding myself in my Jeep on a high, sheer cliff. This land can be unforgiving and inhuman, and I was lucky to be able to laboriously free and extract myself. This time I would not take such chances, but I did need to come back here to see once again the amazing treasures of Horseshoe Canyon. This canyon is a separate unit of Canyonlands National Park, and as it opened up before me, I could see how this chasm formed an unexpected barrier to early travelers heading across the desert. It was once called Barrier Canyon, and it's the home of some extraordinary examples of the Desert Archaic people's rock face artwork. The archaeological style of these scenes is labeled as Barrier Canyon style, giving their place name to all other such examples. And the galleries here are world-renowned, especially one of the finest and most spectacular pictograph panels ever created, known as the Great Gallery. I was determined to hike the 7-mile round trip over the huge rocks, going down some 800 feet into the cottonwood-lined canyon, through the wash's hindering sands, plodding on under the hot sun to see it once again. As with all canyons, the trail from the rim is a trap. I easily slid and pranced down into the stony cleft, knowing that the way out would not be so carefree. Then suddenly I was down, but I found that I was without ears. Silence. Absolute. Dry and still. It was dry and hot, but the air was easy to breathe in and breathe out. The bright sun pressed down with his radiant hand, and then the just yellowing cottonwoods trembled as an unexpected breeze approached me. It came rolling down the canyon like a tidal current, sounding a welcoming sigh as it ruffled my hair and lifted my spirits. Along the way, several smaller pictograph panels revealed themselves, a prelude to the great wall ahead. And with the breeze, another kind of sound attaches to these places. Murmurs and whispers of the old ones are caught and long held in the reddened crystals of sand along the canyon walls. They remain here like the smoky stains of desert varnish that wander up toward the sky. If one is still and listens with quiet awareness, the old voices can yet be discerned. The braying of wild burros echoed down the red walls. After what could have been hours, or perhaps years, I found them. Suddenly, one wall of the smooth tan sandstone, varnished by the breath of the ages, opened up, and the figures emerged like apparitions as I finally walked into the presence of the Great Gallery. This astonishing artwork panel stretches some 200 feet and haunts us with ghostly humanoid shapes and other mysterious symbols pecked and painted onto it. These images are at least 2,000 years old, their subjects still holding solemn court at this privileged place in the winding canyon. I stood here and took it all in, marveling as these towering ghosts traveled through time to stare at me from their hidden and hallowed place. At last, I walked away from the great panel, leaving the spirits in the sun and shadows for another day, another year. I left them with a new awareness of the sensing of time. A moment can linger for days, and 500 years can seem like nothing at all. I wandered back to my world, passing through the centuries, one for every bend in the echoing canyon. I left the ghost men standing in their great stone hall and traveled far around to the place where I first fell in love with these canyons and spires. The southeastern section of Canyonlands National Park is known as the Needles. It was here in this standing up country that I once received an unexpected vision of nature, a transforming experience of landscape magic. In 1975, with my adventurous sister at my side, we came up from the Grand Canyon to see what these newer Arches and Canyonlands parks were like. It was in March of that year, and still winter up here, with heavy snow on the roads and lengthy icicles depending from rock ledges. We turned west at Church Rock into the Needles District and discovered a wonderland that took our breath away. Now, in a lighter snowfall, we hiked to beautiful Chesler Park, surrounded by uncountable skyscraper-high red stone monoliths, passing huge sandstone fens, and entering deep, narrow cracks in the rugged rocks. With the flakes coming down as if we were inside some fantastic snow globe, we thought that surely at any moment hobbits and elves would pop out from behind the stones. We laughed, but we continued to scrutinize the formations, just in case. From that day forward, I was truly enchanted, and I've returned here time and again to regain entry into this wondrous place. Seen from a distance, the Needles look like some strange city skyline. Once you venture inside, the massive towers are imposing and sometimes quirky or even comical. I tread lightly here. The stones encourage one to be quiet, and there is fragile living soil covering the spaces between the towers. These helpful microbiotics form a crust that's easily destroyed by a misplaced footprint, and they can take a century to grow back again. I made the extraordinary hike to Chesler Park again, following the rock cairns across the convoluted sandstone. Along a recessed wall, just aside the path, handprints showed me that I'm not the first to note my presence in this astonishing world. At last, after a steep final climb, serene Chesler Park presented itself. Entering this place feels like stumbling upon a gigantic and ancient Atlantis. Thousands of massive masonry towers scatter far over these rolling hills, frozen in time as the wind and sun slowly melt them into curious shapes. The long, inspiring park of green and orange suggests an artistic urban planner. It's a scene that seems it should be populated, filled with milling crowds. When the black raven caws and the wind sighs around the rocks, we realize it's too quiet for such throngs. There are few humans here. It is the rock pillars themselves who form the sense of mass congregation. Perhaps it is all mere sand and wind? Perhaps. Or could this primordial city have been designed by spirit beings or unknowable ancient men and women of mystic vision, serving some need of the soul and heart that still resonates in us today? I feel the rocks ring as they sing their long songs, gazing ever into eternity. Crossing Chesler Park's broad, open meadows, I reached a true wonder of the Needles. The joint trail appeared like some childhood fantasy. A deep and natural crevice in the Great Sandstone Ridge, known as a joint, opens as the trail disappears down into it, along with myself. This gigantic slot is no wider than a person for much of its nearly 2,000-foot length, but the walls tower 60 feet above, leaving only a thin slit of unreachable sky. The sun's light is enfeebled down in this strange, narrow cathedral of shadows. I am microscopic, wandering between these gigantic ramparts of stone, until, at last, I emerged into the bright southern desert. Further into the Needle's secret depths, a giant doubled arch sits like an ancient stone king, majestically surveying his court at the head of Elephant Canyon. Druid Arch rises nearly 500 feet, appearing indeed like a natural desert version of Stonehenge, with its strangely compelling angular shape and voids. The Needles have captured up a part of my own soul and provide me memories of and access to true wonder, even when I'm bound up in my everyday life in my faraway home. I only have to think back to that convoluted fairyland, the fantasy city hidden in the depths of the great western seas, where a massive chicken eyes me far below, or colossal elephant's feet touch the sky, where a dark and narrow crack swallows me down, or a conglomeration of thousands of gigantic mushrooms laugh at my attempts to clamber over them, where the quiet is loud and the desert light is heartbreakingly enchanting. The Needles are impossible, sacred, and sublime. Sensing now my journey's end, I came north again into the highest plateau of Canyonlands, and to one of the world's great vistas, from the island in the sky. Here, splayed out below me, unimaginably complex and beautiful stonescapes are still being carved by the Colorado and Green Rivers. These two great streams join together at their confluence, invisible far below me, here at Grandview Point. From there, the reinforced Colorado disappears into the Needles and Maze districts, and then carves its way on to the Grand Canyon. I've been coming here for more than half of my life to see the majestic space and the colors that seem to belong to some other planet than the one that contains my green home. I sat on the edge of the world and tried to make sense of my quest. Time settles down as withered flakes in the land of wizened stone. Minutes and hours pile up. Dry drifts, one on top of another. The essence of their measure baked hard into unyielding clays, filling each rocky crack. Bajadas covered with arid months, arroyos layered with dusty days, until the desert is made of nothing but time accumulated, waiting. Released at last by some cosmic rain, time stirs in mass ascension, floating free and blending into eternity. While I was within my circle, my vision quest produced no magical direct vision, but I had received a healing. My mind had quieted down and opened up, and I'd begun to sense the moods and whispers of my subconscious, kind of like another voice, sounding in the distance, but overrun by the noise of my waking and analytical mind. Wandering here along this great rim of the earth, I felt frustrated by this. How can I break through to that other self? Perhaps it's a prisoner, trapped in a runaway train and only able to communicate to the wild conductor with pantomimes and bell tones in the darkness of sleep. With sleep come dreams. And every now and again, I'm fascinated when those dreams present me with a fully detailed set piece of incredible beauty and complexity, complete with expressive characters involved in a potent story, in a rich setting with landscapes, architecture, colors, and sounds, revealed all on an instant, like a scene change in a movie. My observing self almost gasps with the surprise and dramatic impact of it. I know I did not create this scene. It came to me complete, appearing instantly. These dream scenes are always potent with symbolic, unspoken meaning, and they come with a strong component of emotion. Emotion applied directly and integrated into the vision's canvas. What remarkable artistry! and how any writer would love to be able to wield such a skill. Are dreams just dreams, then? Or, perhaps, do visions sometimes come to us in dreams? At one edge of the rim, over 2,000 feet above the two rivers, I found 3 feathers from a bird of the canyons. I knew I should not view them as sad relics, but rather powerful icons and symbols. I held them out over the edge and saluted the vertical depths they once flew over, as my spirit flies now. Over the canyonlands, over the great desert, over the empty places, over the beautiful places, over the unlikely place where my heart finds comfort. Far below me, in Monument Basin, the stone heads seem to nod. The yellow sun falls down one more time, and stillness returns, as those orange and dusk rose thrones quietly glow, and then fall into deep shadow. The stars emerge. I was ready to head south now, my journey almost over, back toward the great crossing and the distant green shores of home. I had one more night to camp before that long drive back to Texas. One more night under the sharp stars and quiet clouds and the dry night air. I expected nothing, but I was ready for anything. I had a dream. In another reality, I was a man of enigmatic ability, a magician of some note. I was seasoned and confident in my skills, and in the responsibility of my role. I was assisting some lawmen who were pursuing 2 violent criminals. They had tracked them to a large cave, and I had been summoned due to the nature of this cave. For it was a place not entirely of this world, a magical cave of some peril that these good men knew that they could not safely enter. I could enter the cave, as this was part of my dual nature and the prime expression of my skills. I confidently entered the dark fissure to determine if the 2 fugitives had, in their panic, fled into it. Inside the hall-like cave, I saw formations and a stream of water, all glowing with a multitude of colors. As I opened my awareness, something was revealed to me. An object that proved that the pursued men had indeed been here, but also told me they would never come out again, for they had been taken by a jaguar. This jaguar was a denizen of the other world, a magical world to which the cave was a nexus and a portal. It was a magic jaguar that had taken those men, and I knew that they would never be seen again in the world outside. I gathered up the thing that proved this was true and took it out of the cave to show the waiting authorities. When they saw it, They also understood that their search was over and justice had been done. I did not need to say anything, only to emerge from the cave, holding high the great feather that I had gathered there. The feather was taller than myself. It was iridescent, with all the colors of the rainbow and more. It glowed with bright light from within, and it was exceedingly beautiful. It was the feather of the jaguar. I awoke from my vision. Was it just a dream? Did my circle in the desert serve me at last as some kind of entry into another realm? If so, what did it mean? Was this incredible dream presentation a type of myth, or perhaps a meaningful symbol? I walked along the canyon rims as the images and story of the powerful dream settled into place in my mind, and I began to understand that this was, in fact, the event I had sought in my quest. I had desired to touch another realm, perhaps even to enter into it. The jaguar's feather was the symbol of power. Its potent image was as strong as a burning beacon, saying, "Pay attention. I am a key." Now I understood that the circle I drew in the desert was not just a sandy line, but an encounter, a way to touch the ineffable. That trace I made is a numinous orbit, one drawn around my heart and spirit and mind. It too is a portal or a nexus that requires the magic of my attention, patience, and empowered intent to access safely. That invisible circle I drew and entered into is the Cave of the Jaguar. The ancient peoples who passed their times in these places believed that the mountains sang songs to them, teaching them the meaning of the land. Maybe it speaks even to someone like me, who returns time and again to open my eyes and ears and just see, just listen. A young man once arrived in these spirit lands and became spellbound by a snowfall in a magical city of massive sandstone spires. Perhaps I am still that young man, forever caught in a vortex of time, always seeking the answers to what is real. Now I had seen that more is possible than I once understood, and I knew I would continue to enter the Cave of the Jaguar, seeking knowledge and exploring new realms. Here in the land of the standing stones, time had come full circle. Now I was free to return home, changed, sobered, and elated for the manner in which my purpose had been fulfilled. I crossed again that dry ocean back to my everyday life, which would be forever infused with a new sense of wonder and a renewed longing to return here to my canyons and mesas. As I walk the greener lands of home, I'll suddenly feel a deliciously dry breeze touching my face, and hear a soft voice calling and singing to me faintly across those many miles. Come west. Come back. Come home to sublime beauty, potent peace, and sun-red magic.